Hi friends, today we are going to be reviewing Bermuda Pirates, or as my 3-year-old likes to call it, Bermuda Pirates, when she asks to play. So the game board is really cool. It has metal, like what is that word? It has metal built right into it because you're going to be pushing around this boat that has a magnet, which makes it really fun. This board moves around so that you can get variety in where your special little spots are that you could lose all your treasure on. So how it works, if I can pop it in these holes somehow magically here. Okay, here's a little bit about how the game plays. You have your boat on your island, and as you go across the board, you're going to encounter magnet, metal, a whirlpool, which can, drag your boat in. And if you have any treasure from the island on it, you would lose it. If not, then you just go back to your island. If so, you still go back to your island. But what your goal is to get to the island without hitting those spots. If you do hit those spots, you can use a buoy to mark it, but you only have 3 buoys, so use them wisely. You can also use your buoys to try to fool your opponents. You have to push it with one finger on the back of the boat. So make sure your flags aren't turned outward, make sure they're turned inward so that you don't have any problem getting your finger right up against the island. You're going to place one of those treasures, and you can choose to brave the seas and keep exploring the island as long as you're only taking one treasure from one area, or if there's any treasure that has been lost at sea because somebody went into a whirlpool, that person has to go back and their treasure is lost at sea. So you can actually go along and pick up treasure lost at sea, but you are risking areas that you don't know where whirlpools are. So your goal, after all that, your goal is to get one of each color back to your island unless you're playing with the advanced rules, which I will mention a little bit later. Not in detail because I want to save the surprise for you, but there is more advanced rules, or there's things simple like not using as many buoys that can make it more challenging. So you can go along, you can pick up, just kidding, one. You have to make sure. So the hard part can sometimes be turning your boat around, or having any coordination whatsoever. So if you it's cold where we're recording, so that's part of our problem here. If you have any sensory, I don't know what I'm saying, fidgety type things, it might be hard to handle the small pieces. So that's another thing to consider, is if you're playing this with your kids, I do recommend adult supervision, just for the fact that these are going to get lost super easy, especially if your kids are rowdy and if they're getting flung near an edge of a table and you have heater vents. Just something to keep an eye on and look out for. But myself, I love small things. Miniatures just make me so happy. So the fact that there is these little gems, I'm kind of giddy about it. So I just ran over the island, so that means I get to go back home. There is little obstacles on the board. If you run over those, you have to go back home. You are shipwrecked. That's really quick way that the game is played. Not a perfect description, of course, but overall, I have to say that this game is fun. It's light. It's easy to play with kids. Our daughter at 3.5 is a little bit young to be able to push it perfectly, but it's been cool for her to work on her fine motor skills. The turns are really quick because obviously during the first play of the game you usually crash quite a bit, or fling your treasure off, whatever you want to say, and that's fun. One of the downsides is that if you memorize where your board is, where your spots on your board are, you can kind of just navigate very quickly and potentially get around the island to get your treasure and make it back successfully. That doesn't always work though, because depending on where that base board, where those metal pieces are, it does change every time, and sometimes they just end up being way trickier than others. Another thing that we noticed is that we have metal in our dining table underneath, so we were like, why is it kind of like this isn't an actual spot? What's happening? And we figured that out, so now we're able to know that and make sure that your table doesn't have metal, because it will affect the magnets in the boats. Alrighty, have to refer to my notes here. Sorry about this. So one of the plus sides, because it can get redundant, right? Like how many times game playing this are you going to get out of it before you're bored, whatever. I actually really like that they have advanced rules because that gives more variety. It's a little bit more challenging. If you feel like you've got a feel for how it works and you want to step up your game a little bit, the advanced rules make it so it's just next level. You have to get more treasure and slightly different rules. So I love that they thought about that, keeps it fresh, and then of course who you're playing with makes it fun when you lose your treasure. There's a lot of laughter all around. One other downside that we noticed is that the board started to warp. I don't think that this is really anybody's fault. It could be environmental. We store it in our house in a dry area, but you never know. It's cardboard, right? And so that can affect the gameplay a little bit, but it's nothing that you can't work around. And so overall, I would say that if you have kids, this is a really great game to have on your shelf. I think that the more kids games you can have, the better. And having one that has little treasures just makes it extra fun. Getting to see them fling off, there's just something that's tactile and enjoyable about that whole crashing thing. Here, I'll show you guys again. Maybe. Oh, look at how successful I am. This is just oh, there we go. See? If your treasure flings off the board, it's lost at sea. And you can go around and pick up other people's treasure that they've dropped. So it's a fun little game, innovative design. There's a couple quirks, but I definitely think that this is one that your kids, if you have them, will enjoy.